The best camera in the world can't save a boring vlog, because if you don't know how to use it or you don't know how to tell a good story, then it doesn't matter if your setup is $600 or $6,000. That's why smartphones have become such a big deal for creators. They're light, easy to use, always with you, and they let you start vlogging without needing a separate camera. So today we're testing the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the Galaxy S26 Ultra, and the Pixel 10 Pro XL to find out which one is actually the best phone for vlogging, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which one to buy and which one to skip. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com. Before you even hit record, the first thing you need to get right is your settings. For your main footage, you'll usually want to shoot in 4K with your frame rate set to either 24 or 30 FPS. That'll give you a more natural cinematic look. But when it comes to B-roll, you can switch things up. Basically, if you're filming anything you might want to slow down later, shoot at 60 FPS, which will give you more flexibility in post, and it makes simple shots feel a lot more polished and professional looking. All of these phones also give you more advanced options if you want extra manual control. On the iPhone and the Pixel, you can use apps like the Blackmagic camera to manually adjust settings like exposure, focus, white balance, and much more. While the Galaxy actually has Pro Video mode built directly into the native camera app. Also, the iPhone and Galaxy can shoot in log, which gives you more flexibility for color grading. But for this video, we're keeping it simple. We'll be testing the phones in their native camera apps on automatic settings, because that's how most beginners will actually use them for vlogging. Now, settings are only the technical part. The bigger thing is how you actually build the vlogs visually. A simple rule that helps immediately is the 3-shot rule. Start with wide shots. This is your establishing shot, giving the viewer a sense of the location and the overall scene before you jump into the story. And here, all three look usable, but the Galaxy handles dynamic range best. It keeps the highlights under control, while the iPhone and the Pixel tend to overexpose some areas. Then you move into medium shots. This brings the viewer a little closer to the same scene, making it feel more personal and natural. Here, all three look solid, but they each handle the scene differently. The Galaxy gives you nicer background blur, the iPhone handles exposure better, while the Pixel looks a bit faded with shadows that are lifted a little too much. And finally, you have close-up shots. These are great for adding emotion and detail, whether that's facial expressions or small things you want viewers to notice. Again, all three are totally usable here, they just differ slightly in background blur and white balance. Zoom is also really useful for vlogging, since it can make your B-roll look more dynamic even from a distance. And the fact that all three phones have dedicated optical lenses is a big advantage. On the iPhone, you get 4 times optical zoom, while the Pixel gives you 5 times and the Galaxy both 3 and 5 times. And that matters because we wouldn't recommend just randomly using digital zoom. It can quickly make your footage look softer and lower quality, so for the best results, stick to the optical zoom levels whenever possible. One thing to keep in mind though, if you zoom while you're already recording, you may notice a small stutter or jump in the image. That's because the phone is switching between lenses, and depending on the phone, that switch can look quite rough. The iPhone definitely achieves the smoothest results here. All three phones also offer portrait video or cinematic mode on the iPhone, adding background blur for a more cinematic look. But it only works with the main camera, and on the Pixel, you should probably avoid it. For selfie-style vlogging, the ultra-wide is usually your best friend. You get more of the frame, which is useful when you're walking or filming with other people. Just know that ultra-wide quality will take a small hit compared to the main camera, especially in low light. But as you can see, they all do a pretty solid job in good lighting. Now, you might be thinking, why not just use the front camera so you can actually see yourself? And you can, but the reality is the quality usually takes a noticeable hit compared to the main camera. The front camera isn't awful by any means, but the rear camera clearly preserves more detail, handles dynamic range better, and produces a nicer bokeh effect that the front camera simply can't match. The iPhone 17 Pro Max does have one big advantage though. Thanks to its new square front sensor, you can now shoot horizontally without actually rotating the phone. So if you do prefer vlogging with the front camera, that's a genuinely useful feature. On the iPhone and the Galaxy, you also get dual recording natively, which can be great for moments where where you want to capture both sides at once, like for example, reactions or surprises. Low light is always tricky on smartphones because this is where video quality can drop fast. If you're filming city lights, street scenes, or neon signs, the phones can still do a pretty good job. The iPhone handles these scenes best overall, while the Pixel produces the most noise. But if you're filming yourself, it's definitely worth bringing a small handheld light or even just turning on your phone's flash. It makes a huge difference because without it, your footage can become basically unusable. And as you can see, all three phones struggle equally in extremely dark conditions, but the moment you turn on the flash, the footage becomes completely usable on every single device. But great video quality means nothing if the audio is terrible. So now let's test all three phones in different real-world situations to see which one actually gives you the cleanest sound for vlogging. So starting off in an indoor controlled environment, let's begin with the iPhone. This is the audio you'd be getting straight from the phone. Moving on to the Galaxy, what do you think? How do I sound? This is the audio you'd be getting straight from the device. And finally, we have the Pixel. This is what your voice would sound like. So here's what the audio sounds like in a more controlled outdoor environment. Starting off with the iPhone, what do you guys think? How do I sound over here? Moving on to the Galaxy, does it sound any better than the iPhone? And then finally, you have the Pixel. What do you guys think? How am I sounding? So here I am now in a busier environment, starting off with the iPhone. What do you think? How do I sound? Then we have the Galaxy. Does it sound better than the iPhone? What do we think? And then finally, we have the Pixel. Does it sound any good? Indoors and in more controlled environments, all three sound totally fine. But in busier scenes, the Pixel and the Galaxy struggle more with wind, while the iPhone handles it much better. The thing about the Pixel though, which is very cool, is that it does offer speech enhancement. So let me toggle that on and show you the difference. So here we have speech enhancement. It's currently on the Pixel. Does it make a difference? I know that this can sound a little bit muffled sometimes. So how's it handling that? Which one do you prefer? As expected, the Pixel's speech enhancement also sounds muffled and makes nearby voices way too loud. On all three phones, you do get options to clean up the audio afterwards. You can do all sorts like reduce background noise, enhance speech, and make your voice sound clearer in post, which can take a clip from sounding like this. So here I am now in a busier environment. What do you think? How do I sound? This is the type of audio you'd be getting, to sounding like this. So here I am now in a busier environment. What do you think? How do I sound? This is the type of audio you'd be getting. Stabilization on smartphones is already very good these days, so for most handheld shots, you'll be completely fine. That said, technique still matters. If you're walking and vlogging, try to keep your arms steady, move smoothly, and avoid sudden steps or sharp movements. Again, you'll probably want to use the ultra-wide lens for selfie-style shots, since the main camera crops in quite heavily. But for general filming, it's still better to use the main camera whenever possible because it gives you the best image quality. As you can see, it also controls dynamic range much better than the ultra-wide. A lot of creators recommend using a gimbal to get the smoothest footage possible. But honestly, we tested selfie mode walking shots both with and without one, and there doesn't seem to be a meaningful difference. That is how good smartphone stabilization has become. Of course, you'll still want to keep your arm and body posture as stable as possible for the best results, but for most shots, you'll be just fine without a gimbal. You've probably seen those classic time-lapse shots where someone cleans an entire room in seconds. The good news is the iPhone and the Pixel both give you a dedicated time-lapse mode, while the Galaxy offers hyperlapse, which is basically a time-lapse designed for more movement. Slow motion is another feature you get on all three phones. You probably won't use it often for vlogging, but it is useful when you want to make a moment feel more dramatic. Unfortunately, the Pixel is limited to 1080p, and you can definitely see the drop in detail. One of the underrated advantages of shooting on a phone is that you can edit on the same device. No file transfers, no waiting. For shorts or quick clips, it's genuinely fast. Even for longer videos, it is doable. Just keep an eye on your storage because 4K fills up faster than you'd expect. You might also be wondering how long these phones can actually last if you're filming and using them all day long. So we ran a full battery drain test on each phone using a mix of everyday apps and 4K video recording to see how long they would last. The first one out was the Pixel, lasting 8 hours and 45 minutes. Next was the Galaxy, which made it to 10 hours and 48 minutes. And the winner was the iPhone, lasting almost 13 hours. That's also way longer than something like an Osmo Pocket, which usually gives you around 2 hours of recording time. And if you want to see the full review of how these phones perform overall, you can watch that video right here. When it comes to price, the new Galaxy S26 Ultra will set you back a hefty $1,299, which to be fair is unchanged from the S25 Ultra. But it's still $100 more than the iPhone, which starts at $1,199, and that's also the same starting price as the Pixel. You might think a $100 difference isn't a huge deal, but hey, that could easily buy you a decent wireless mic, which might actually improve your vlog more than the phone upgrade. At the end of the day, the most important thing is still the story. You need a clear idea, a hook that keeps people watching, and enough variety in your shots to make the vlog feel interesting. Master the 3-shot rule, get creative with your edit, and remember, good gear definitely helps, but only if you actually know how to use it. So if you want the best all-around video quality with the least extra gear, even in low light, the iPhone is probably your best bet. However, the Galaxy does have the widest main camera here at 23mm, so if you do prefer vlogging with the main cam, that is worth considering. The Pixel looks okay overall, but it is the most inconsistent, it struggles at night, and it costs basically the same as the iPhone, so for this use case, we'd say it's a hard pass. Ultimately, it really depends on what you plan to film and what matters most to you. And if you're thinking you'd actually prefer a dedicated camera, make sure to check out our best camera for vlogging video right here, where we put the iPhone 17 Pro Max up against some of the top vlogging cameras currently on the market. Also, in case you want exclusive access to videos and perks, go ahead and press that join button to become a member. Here's a shout out to our latest Ultra members, Emre, Kai, Ebe, Gotedtho, Trigger Landmac, David, Chris, and Adam. And before you go start filming your first vlog, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and hit subscribe because we're always testing the latest tech to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.